Hello, welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn a little bit about packages because we've been creating packages so far. We're just going to discuss about them a little bit and then we will learn about access modifiers. Right. I'm going to open all these four. So packages are something that comes as a first statement, right? And it kind of like is the folder or namespace, like I mentioned in one of the earlier videos. Packages help group your classes, like organize them, right, into different sections. But they also come into play a little bit when you try to access classes, right, from some other package. Now, what I mean by that is if you have another package here, let's say new package. Now let's call it com dot java2 dot section 4 dot pkg2, right, package 2. Hit finish. Now we have another package. I'm going to create a new class in here. I'm going to name it package test, right? And I'm going to create the main method. Hit finish. Now in here, let me try to create a new object of type manager, right? Manager, which is already a class that we have defined, right, in one of the earlier videos. So I'm going to call it mgr1 equals new manager. We're getting an error and it says manager cannot be resolved to a type. So Java doesn't know what manager we're talking about. We did not have this problem earlier when we created an object of type manager in manager test. That's because manager test and manager are under the same package, so Java knows where the manager class is. But package test is a class in a different package, so we need to tell Java which manager class we're talking about because this manager class could be anywhere. It could even come with Java like pre-installed, like the string class, right? So to do that, we need to do an import. As you can see, we have options that Eclipse is giving. If you click this, you will have this import statement. We have not seen import before, so it's pretty important to understand what it means. We're basically importing the class manager, right, from a different package to tell Java, okay, import the class from com java.section4 manager because that's the class I'm trying to use, right? So this is where package serves your purpose, where package defines the namespace where the class is defined, and you use it in conjunction with import to import classes or access classes defined elsewhere. So here you could call the same methods, right? Now you have, so if you do it's called mg1, sorry, mg1 dot, so calculate bonus is there. You can access everything. Now that you have imported, there's no difference between manager test and package test any longer because we're talking about the same manager class, right? So that's basically packages. Now I said we were also going to learn about access modifiers, right? If I quickly jump back to employee class, we have these private defined, we have public on the methods, right? So these are called access modifiers. What that means is it basically help control where a particular field or method is visible, right? So when we say private, we're saying that method is visible, or sorry, that field is visible only to this class. Because if I go to employee test and then try to do emp2 dot access the name, we cannot access the name because name is private. We were able to do get name, right, or set name because get name and set name are public, which we can call, but name, job title, and salary are all private, so it's not accessible. And if you make them public, if you make this public and then go back here and then try to do a emp2 dot name, that works, right? Because now it's public, you can access, but that is really, really bad thing to do. We never want any of our fields to be public, right? The only time you can make something public is if you also make it final. Now, final might seem familiar to you. Final is a keyword that we used earlier when we created constants, right? So if you want to create a constant at this class level, so you can say public static. We'll learn about static later. Final, and then you can just say final, we'll call a string, um, company name equals ABC, right? Just for example purposes. Now note that I typed everything in capitals because that's the naming convention for constants. So the only time you would want to make something public is if you are creating a constant or if you're creating methods, right? But you don't want any of your data fields public. So that's the difference between private and public. If it's public, it's accessible only to this class. If it's public, it can be accessed from anywhere. Now there are two other access modifiers. One of them is protected. So in here, you can type protected. What's another field? You could call string department, right? You could create a protected one. When you make something protected, if you go to manager, right? So in here, from let's find the constructor. So here's the constructor. Let's try to do this dot name, job title, and salary are not accessible because they are private. Like we said, private ones are accessible only within the class, but department is accessible here, right? So that's the difference between, so you can say department equals 001. Let's say that's the only department, right? So we are able to set the department. Sorry, department is a string protected. So what's the error here? Can it be resolved? This dot department. Oh, we need to save employee. Sorry about that. So now this dot department equal 1. I did not save employee, so Java did not know what department I was talking about. So this dot department equals 001. This works fine because the protected data field is accessible in the child class as well. Right? You don't need to go through the method. There are some scenarios where you would want to make something protected, but ideally we would want all of our data fields to be private. Uh, that's the third type. So there was private, public, and protected. The difference is private is accessible only within the class, public is accessible everywhere, protected is accessible either within the class or in the subclasses, right? Or the child classes. The fifth one is default, right? We don't type default because if you just type int, what is something else that we can type to an employee? Let's call string location, right? We did not give any access modifier here, which would make it a default, right? Default is the fourth one. If you don't specify an access modifier, it's default. When you have something like this, it's accessible by all classes within this package, right? So you could go here and then type gr1 dot department, right? So if you have something default, it's accessible by every class within this subclass, right? I'm going to save all this. To show the difference, I'm going to go to package test, right? Now I'm going to type mg1 dot and see what all I can access here. As you can see, I could not access anything. When I say anything, I could not access any field. I could not access department, I could not access location or anything because we are altogether in a different package. When you are in a different package, you have no access to any of the fields, right? But if you are within the package, you could access the default ones. So that's the fourth one. And default is also something that is not very frequently used. Ideally, we would want to make all our fields private, but if you know you have another class within the same package that would need access to a particular field, you can go ahead and make it default, right? But there is no difference between making that or making something private and giving the methods. So ideally, we would want to make everything private and give methods to access it. But that is the fourth type of access modifier you have, which you don't have to specify, but that's the default type. And whatever you have default is accessible from all the classes within that particular package. So that's where the significance of package comes. Um, and especially in relation to the access modifiers. So hopefully that made sense. Please play along with it, play with it, add more fields to manager, make it different access modifiers, and see where it's accessible. But that's basically the four types of access modifier that are in Java. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.